I'm Garrett Westlake, Vice Provost for Innovation and Strategic Design at Virginia Commonwealth University. And today we're tackling the question that keeps all organizations up at night. How do you build talent that thrives, no matter what comes next? This is Talent Without Boundaries, redefining professional skills across disciplines. Nick Surface, CEO of RVA Tech, moderates a conversation with leaders who are breaking the code. Kim Range from the Martin Agency, who's transformed how major brands like CarMax, Dominion Energy, and the Federal Reserve Bank think about developing people. Tykeem Cooper, Executive Director of the Richmond Ed Fund and co-founder of Virginia Excels. T-Bay Bassi, who's leading customer experience for Dominion Energy's 7 million customers and bringing insights from financial services, e-commerce, and hospitality. Dr. Paula Pando, President of Reynolds Community College, who runs one of the nation's largest community colleges with a laser focus on workforce development and economic mobility. These leaders know something. When education, innovation, and industry work together, you don't just fill jobs, you create competitive advantage.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for being here at another Big Dipper Innovation Summit. Thank you to my panelists. We're going to start the day off, or the early afternoon off, talking about workforce, talent development, and what we're seeing in our various organizations around town and around the country. My name is Nick Surface. For those I don't know, I'm the CEO at the Richmond Technology Council. We're a trade association here in Richmond, Virginia, that puts on a whole host of conferences and programs and events to try to create the most vibrant tech community and tech town we can for Richmond, Virginia. But I have a whole host of panelists here with me today that I'd like to have you all introduce yourselves along the way, and we'll start with Tykeem Cooper.
Good morning, everyone. Tykeem Cooper, born and raised in Farmville, Virginia, and I lead the Richmond Ed Fund.
Good morning, folks. My name is Kim Range. I work with the Martin Agency. I've been in Richmond now for about 20 years. Call it home. Really excited to be here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is T-Bay Bassi. I'm with Dominion Energy as Vice President of Customer Experience. I've been in the Richmond area just under 5 years.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Paula Pando, President of Reynolds Community College, more commonly known in our region as J. Sarge, and I'm entering my 8th year in that role.
Thank you all. So we're going to open the first question up to everyone and start with Dr. Pando at the end. Paula, thank you. What skills do you believe will be most valuable in tomorrow's economy that aren't necessarily being prioritized today?
Sure. Well, I think, first of all, there's a term that needs a better name, and that's called the soft skills. How to show up on time, how to show up to work, how to be a good colleague, how to work together as a team, how to work conflict. Those kinds of skills, regardless of the industry that you're in, are absolutely required to succeed in today's workforce. And I think more and more we're going to stop calling them soft skills and really fundamental skills to ensure you're successful in whatever sector it is that you enter. Certainly artificial intelligence, colleges and universities feel very confident that our graduates are completing their programs with the skills needed in artificial intelligence. But our employers report nowhere near close to what we expect from our workforce that's coming out of our institutions. So I think certainly those fundamental skills, but also understanding how to use artificial intelligence responsibly, ethically, to really be able to scale efforts regardless of the role that you're playing.
Paul, I'd like to double click on that in a second as well, because we're seeing the same in the tech sector. But Utibe, may I come to you next?
Yeah, I would agree that these skills shouldn't be called soft skills. Here's how I would respond to that question. Skills, the ability to influence people, the ability to get the most out of people, the ability to rally people, set a vision, communicate that vision. Those are the skills that I think will make a person distinct Certainly now they do, but it will be increasingly important, right? I think we are approaching an age where there's, of course, technical skills, and those will be important. But what's even more important, I think, is your ability to lead, which basically I'm describing leadership. And leadership is not a position, it's not management, right? That's a different set of skills. But how can you get a group of people who are hyper distracted, have different objectives, are being pulled in many different directions, and how can you be the one to get them to believe something in a common way and get them to one direction? That's, I believe, the skills that will set folks apart.
Kim, what about you at the Martin Agency?
Yeah. So I lead talent development at the Martin Agency, and we're seeing a lot of the same things, which is it's not necessarily what you do and sort of the product you provide and the technical skills, but it's the how. We say craft versus collaboration as we think about performance. And so really working around the how. How do you navigate conflict? How do you build relationships before you need them? How do you influence people and be a really great storyteller? So similar to the last couple of panelists, like really thinking about the how versus the what and doubling down on that.
Tykeem?
Yeah, and in our industry, I like to tell people I think we've always waited too late. So in this country, historically, we've said, you graduate high school, you graduate college, and then we're going to help you figure out everything else. And it's way too late to upskill people and to really give them the tools needed to be successful. And so the things that I think about are social capital and, of course, the ability to communicate is paramount. Are you genuinely curious? Are you willing to figure things out and problem solve with peers and colleagues?
Yeah, what we're seeing in the technology sector is that despite the rise of technology and AI and a lot of different capabilities on the tech side, the human element is what really brings the most value to the table for companies and institutions and organizations. And that's our differentiator as humans, I think, to bring that humanity to the table. Kim, I'd like to come back to you if you wouldn't mind. And I'd love to hear about what Martin is doing in particular to kind of develop the skills that you all see are needed into the future. What's happening in the trenches at Martin?
Yeah. So I'm going to tackle this sort of twofold. How we identify those skills and then how we attack it. Identifying the skills that are needed, I think a lot of L&D organizations can be a bit passive. You're sort of waiting for the business or a stakeholder to come to you and say, hey, this is what we need. At the Martin Agency, I'm leading in a way that's like incredibly proactive. I'm having conversations with the talent. It's really important to be really close to the work, but even closer to the talent. So it's constantly having conversations with the talent to understand what are their roadblocks, what client meeting did they run into an issue with today, and how did they deal with that issue. So it's about being in the trenches and really working to understand what those themes and insights are, and then mobilizing senior leadership. I'm really incredibly fortunate to have some senior leaders at the table who understand the link between L&D and driving business outcomes. And so whether it's a client engagement or they're in an internal review, they're constantly looking at their talent and the capabilities at play, and then they're picking up the phone and saying, hey, Kim, I'm spotting some of these trends, like what's going on? And so we're constantly in this sort of sensing mode, which I think gives us an incredible amount of intel for us to act quickly and close those gaps. So that's assessing and sort of identifying those areas of opportunity. Now it's about closing them. And some of the capabilities that we are going after, we talked about AI and some of these other sort of like sexy, shiny things that I think a lot of sectors are going after, and we are going after those. But I'm also going after timeless capabilities, those capabilities that really will serve you today, but into the future. So we're talking about creative agility, so being able to work on a brief across different categories. We're talking about cultural curiosity, so being aware of what's going on in our cultural surroundings and being able to apply that to the work. We're talking about strategic storytelling. I say to everyone at the agency, we're all storytellers at heart. And so combining those sort of timeless capabilities with technical skill building, that means brief writing for strategists. That means, concepting for creatives or working with bids and budgets and on-site production. It's incredible production today, by the way, for our producers. We're combining this sense of timeless capabilities with craft, and we're launching actually a new program called Cake that is the premise of all of this and is really going to bring it to the forefront. It is a craft accelerator for our emerging talent, a 6-month program, and it's all about doubling down on these timeless capabilities as well as craft. And we're really excited to see the outcome of this program because we really do think that not only is it going to help with sort of that mindset shift and building some of those softer skills, but it's going to allow our folks to have a really strong foundation so that they can remix those tools to face the ambiguity ahead of them.
Yeah, Kim, I love the word craft that you just used because I think that is the big differentiator. We're here at an innovation conference, and you mentioned the shiny, sexy things, but those are almost table stakes these days. You have to know what the frontier tech is and what it can do, but it's the craft that you apply on top of it that really adds value and brings humanity to the table.
Absolutely.
Utibe, may I ask you about Dominion and a little bit about how you all are bridging the gap between technical skills and some of the softer skills that Paula mentioned?
Yeah, Dominion is and there are enough colleagues in this room that hold me accountable. Dominion is a very, very values-based organization and a mission-driven company. As it relates to sort of our philosophy around people, it's literally people, mission, future. So people first, then the mission, and then the future. And our leaders are oriented towards leading in that way. And so to your point on the balance between the human and the technical, I don't see it as this bifurcation in the same way, because it's even how we engender and how we train and how we teach the technical has to be from a human lens, if that makes any sense. Right? To apply, we always say this, even from a customer experience perspective, we can't have technology for the sake of technology. It must be solving something for someone, right? There's someone behind there's someone's need that the technology should be meeting. There's someone's need that the engineering solution should be meeting. There should be a consideration of the person, even in the technical. And so the push and sort of how we think about it is people first, right? And that people is the people you lead, but the people that you're here to serve. We think a lot about the communities that we serve, the needs of the humans, right, that we're here to serve, and how we apply the technical skills and training should be in service of that. So there is a hierarchy, and the goal, and certainly how we approach things, how we talk about it, certainly how I talk about it even within a customer group, is it's people first. And that people is the customer. And so if we don't know the people's needs, if we don't know the people's preferences, if we don't consider the people's differences, if we don't know what language people speak, whether it's like literal language or contextual language, then the application of the technology is moot. And so that's the way we think about it, not as this separation, but letting the people and the needs of the people be the lens through which we look at technology.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that technology can do, and we're almost in an age where we need to evaluate what do we really need it to do? What is the problem? Because there's so much we could do. We could get lost in all the possibility. But really, at the end of the day, we're trying to solve problems, make things easier, make them more efficient, and improve our life and our businesses and what have you. But we can't do everything that technology allows.
That's right. And so knowing for who is very important. And getting intimate, actually, getting clear and getting close to the target of that technology is how you get rid of the noise.
Paul, may I move to you and ask a little bit about Reynolds and what you all are doing to help bridge this gap and empower our next generation?
Sure. And I'll piggyback off of something Tykeem said earlier about students learning too late what it is they want to do after they complete a degree or credential and then figure it out. So we're really kind of flipping the script at Reynolds in a couple of ways. First is the variability of time. So higher ed forever has been 15 weeks, and the grade at the end is the variable. The knowledge is the variable, but the time is always set in stone. 15 weeks in the fall, 15 in the spring. You may get an A, B, C, D, or F. We're starting to see that people come into the classroom with skills, and they should be able to move quickly through the curriculum and show competency a lot more quickly than you have to wait until the third month to take the test that will show you've mastered something. And so we're seeing a lot of changes in how we offer in terms of time being the variable, with the competency being the constant. You've mastered something, whether it was in 15 weeks, 5 weeks, or 3 weeks. And I think that really speaks to not just, again, the skills requirement that employers want and need, but also fits the need of an increasingly diverse student body in terms of age and experiences that they've had. Perhaps they've been out of the academy for 10, 20 years. What they've learned on the job should count for something. And so we're doing a lot of work in that space. The second piece that I would offer, specifically to Tykeen's point, is work-based learning from the very beginning of your program. So again, higher ed, typically you get your internship, your externship at the very tail end of the program. And what we've begun doing probably 3-4 years now is that journey begins with the employer and work-based learning. Community college students tend to have a lot on their plates. They tend to be working full-time. Some are parents, some have 1 or 2 jobs, and one emergency can derail a person from fulfilling their potential. And so we want them to know early on that the field that they're entering is one that they have an ability, a talent, or a desire to engage in. A good example is our partnership with Toyota North America. Our students who are in the automotive technology program must remain employed with the Toyota dealership while they're being trained to be a master Toyota Lexus technician. And so they must remain employed throughout their time, so they're earning while they're learning, so they don't have to juggle another job. They know what it's like to be in the industry from day one through completion, and now it's kind of like a 2-year job interview that they've had, or 2 years of really solid experience that they're able to show. We have those kinds of partnerships with VCU Health in our nursing program, respiratory therapy program, and the list continues to grow, where our employers are part of the curriculum, not just in terms of students earning while they're learning, but also equally important, that they're helping to write the curriculum. My friends on the faculty get mad at me all the time when we talk about what is the relevance of our curriculum today in terms of students entering the workforce upon completion of the credential. If we don't have business and industry as part of the architecture of that program and consistent review, we cannot in good faith say that students who graduate from any one of our career and technical programs will be prepared with the skills, the experiences, and the credentials necessary to succeed in the contemporary workforce. So playing part as partners in not just the employment piece, that our students are from day one understanding what it's like to be in that field. Culinary is a great example. You may like to cook, but you may not want to be on a line for 6-7 hours in a hot kitchen. You see the Food Channel and no one's sweating, right? No one's saying my feet hurt, I'm tired. So to really understand what it's like to work in that, but also they're crafting the curriculum to ensure that what we're teaching is relevant, it's contemporary, so that on day one, students are ready to succeed in the field where they've earned the credential.
Yeah, I think that's commendable, Dr. Pando. I mean, the partnership between institutions and corporations are more critical than ever before. And there is this distinct separation between the knowledge set and the skill set and the actual workforce environment that you might encounter.
Right.
And so to train for that, or at least make students aware of that, I imagine is a constant challenge or uphill battle.
Sure, and to know on day one, maybe in your first month, this is not the right program for me. I would rather someone know that up front, make a decision to shift gears, versus you've been through the program, now in your last month of internship and saying, what did I get myself into?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Takeen, can we come to you and can I ask a little bit about the career trajectory overall and how things are constantly evolving, and what exists today may not be the same types of careers or career paths that exist 10, 15, or maybe even 5 years from now. Things are moving at such a rapid pace. How can we keep up with that? How do we plan for that? What can we do to bob and weave to make sure that we're good 15 years from now, as good as we are today?
Sure. So I'll start by saying almost exactly a year ago, I was sitting in a hotel in Atlanta on an inner city visit with the chamber. And I had lunch with two well-respected business leaders from this region. And they aired all of their grievances with me, all of their frustrations about Richmond Public Schools and the things that haven't been done. And so during this meeting, my request of them was to give me a chance to earn their trust because some things would be changing. And I invited them on a trip to New York. Paula joined us to look at some school models. And then we, after New York, we took a delegation of folks to Arizona. And then early in February, we took a delegation of 30 people from this region to Colorado to study some school models. Part of what I envision our role is really to tear down the walls and these artificial silos that we have in education, but also in our region. And so what I mean by that, over the past couple years, Richmond Public Schools, our graduation rates are, and this is probably one of the best kept secrets in the region. We have arguably the highest graduation rate that we've ever had in 20 years. We've accredited 50% more schools over the past 2 years. We're up SOL scores in all 5 subjects, and we're outpacing the state in 4 of the 5 subjects. But as I told the superintendent, that's not enough. And if we truly want to prepare our kids to thrive, we have to do so much more, and we really have to reimagine schooling as we know it. You know, school is the same way, high schools are largely the same way that they were 100 years ago. And so many of the things that Paula was mentioning at the community college level, we need to start it at the high school level. So these work-based learning experiences. Part of RPS's new strategic plan, kids are gonna have paid internships during the school year. Who said that you have to be in school or in a classroom 90 minutes? Maybe these paid internships can also be credit bearing. And maybe not only credit bearing at high school, maybe they can be credit bearing at the college. And so part of our the next phase of our work in Richmond Public Schools, we're calling it Passion for Learning. But all of our high schools can be closely aligned to career clusters. And students will have a portfolio that they complete by the time they graduate, which will make them, our goal is to make them more competitive for college, career, or anything else that they choose to do.
Yeah, I want to come back to the portfolio concept because I think that's more and more relevant now as we get out as well. But I want to come back to your trip around the country. You said New York, Arizona, Colorado. Can you give us an example or two of something you liked that you saw and maybe something you didn't like or that you think Richmond is doing well?
So I'll start off with something I think Richmond is doing better, but we aren't doing well yet. And that's really cross-sector collaboration. In Richmond, we have this thing where such and such is working on it, so we probably shouldn't because they're already doing it. And it's like, you know, it's cloaked in Southern collegiality. It's like, oh, bless their heart. They'll be talking about it for the next 10 years and we won't ever make any progress. Instead of collectively working on something. And I think a huge step with that is RVA Rising, the collective impact effort around economic mobility. I think other places, it's really a partnership. Public schools, community college, business, other partners. And so one of the cool concepts I saw, and this was really, really small, but in Colorado, for example, they have a partnership with Apple. And so all of the students at this high school who are in this program, they become Genius Bar certified. And they were too young to work at the Apple store, to work at the Genius Bar. So Apple gave them permission. They essentially set up a Genius Bar at a high school. And so instead of taking that long trip to Short Pump, you could drive to Richmond Public Schools and drop off your device, get it worked on, et cetera. And so you're generating revenue there. And kids are getting this real world experience. So who says that they're going to work for Apple, but going back to, kind of our initial conversation around these soft skills and things that people are building that are transferable.
Yeah. The Genius Bar is a great example of a combination between technical and soft skills. That we've all been there. You got to have the technical skills, but that place is chaos all the time. And so managing the grandmother who comes in and the high schooler who comes in and combining that with your tech skills, I think, makes probably leverages or accelerates your experience, weekly. I want to transition the conversation a little bit to talk about Richmond and attracting talent to Richmond. We're obviously here in downtown, and we all have a vested stake in this city, certainly in our different organizations. And I'd like to talk about what advantages Richmond has for talent attraction and what you all see are our biggest elements that are helping to leverage folks coming to town. And T-Bay, I'd like to start with you at Dominion. I mean, you all have one of the biggest buildings here in town. You're bringing a lot of people to town. So what are you seeing? What makes Richmond great for you all?
I'll answer two different ways. I think within Dominion, one of the biggest value propositions is it's a company, the average person at Dominion, I'm not sure exactly how many years they've spent, but has worked in many different roles. So it's a company that can offer a person, maybe you come in, in an HR position, but you have the opportunity to work in a range of jobs. And so this idea of building a career where maybe certain cities are known for certain things, at least within the ecosystem of Dominion, there's a lot of opportunity. It's actually very unique. So I've only been here, I'm still saying only, I've only been here 5 years or less than 5 years. And even from where I came from, I moved to Richmond for the job. Dominion in particular, I believe, has a growth mindset ethos where folks take bets on people. You may have never done supply chain, but we think you can do it. And so there's a lot of opportunity even within the organization to do a range of things. Now, if I talk about Richmond at large, as someone who made the decision to move from Jersey City, New Jersey, working in New York, to Richmond in the middle of the pandemic, sight unseen, having no family, really no basis for this move, why did I do it? I still get that question from a lot of my community that's outside of here. Richmond is I found a very easy place to enter, to move to. It's not whatever you're interested in, you can get involved, right? I found actually Rich. When I moved, I'm very interested in the ecosystem, entrepreneurship ecosystem. So I've been working with Startup Virginia. It was that easy. If I care about healthcare, I can just go to the person doing the thing, right? The door is open. It feels like the door is open here. There's traffic is one thing. That's another plus, right? The ease of access, the environment, the ecosystem, the fact that you can travel 2 hours here, it's mountains 2 hours here. There's a lot that's going for it. Honestly, it's the restaurant scene, the culture. And so I think Richmond gives the best of a lot of worlds. Every person that I've invited to come visit me, hey, I live in Richmond, Virginia now. You what? I said, I live in Richmond, Virginia now. Whenever people come visit, generally everyone is pleasantly surprised about how much there is to do here. So if there are three things I would say, at least within Dominion, Dominion offers a range of opportunities, and there's still so much more happening than I can even speak about. There's so much going on, and there's so many job types of opportunities. But Richmond itself, I think it's inviting, it's welcoming. I honor those who have been here longer. From my 5-year perspective, I believe that Richmond is at the cusp of something. It's really just it's there, and getting to be part of it. The doors are open. Whatever it is that you want to, please, at least from a service perspective, wherever it is that you want to serve, it's easier to do that. I've been in bigger cities where there's doors and guards and a lot more rope to get through to navigate. And so I actually think Richmond is a well-kept secret that should not be a secret any longer. It's more than its brand. It's more than its history, right? It's more than what I think the associations that folks who may not have any context about Richmond think about it. If there's anyone that needs someone to go on campaign and talk about Richmond, I'm happy to, because it surprised me in so many ways. So much so that I was saying backstage that when I leave for a few days, I'm like, I want to go home. I want to go home.
I'm going to take you up on that,
Kim,
by the way.
You got it. Okay. Kim, I'd like to come to you next, because you can't talk about Richmond without talking about Martin. You can't talk about Martin without talking about Richmond. The integration of the creativity of our city and what you all do as a core business just makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, you've had tremendous success nationally, internationally as a company, but yet you stay here in Richmond. So why? What is it about this town that keeps you all grounded here?
Yeah, the art scene and the creativity that is the heartbeat of this city is just so incredible. We are constantly competing to attract talent here. We're bringing folks in from New York City, from Jersey, from LA, from Miami, globally. And they ask, where are you situated? And we're like, in Richmond, Virginia. They're like, where is that? But once they visit, we always, at a trip into our recruitment experience, they're like, I gotta move there. We show them the city, we show them the heartbeat of the city, the restaurants, the art scene, and just the accessibility of it all and the quality of life that you can have. We're able to attract just top-notch talent, and they stay here. I also think that at the agency, we do a really, really great job of building a sense of community. I think during the pandemic, a lot of us, got pulled away from our different communities, and we've done a really great job at the agency taking steps with our team members to ensure that they feel a sense of feeling seen, feeling a part of something, whether it's events or you invite your family members or you get connected through the Richmond experience to the broader Richmond community. We're all about place building and community building so that people feel like they have a place here and we're able to retain talent that way. And so we've seen a lot of success. Is there a long way to go? Absolutely. But we've seen a lot of success in terms of attracting talent and keeping talent here to do absolutely brilliant work.
Yeah, we've seen the same thing. Talking to people outside of town, a lot of times when we mention Richmond, Virginia, in the tech sector, they're like, I don't really know a lot about Richmond. Tell me more. And so one of the things we've done at the Richmond Technology Council is we've adopted a brand platform for the city that plays off the creativity. So we call Richmond, Virginia, Tech's most creative city. And we use that. We have a separate website for it. We use it as a brand platform. We say it, because it just ties in to a lot of the authentic history of what we have going on here in Richmond. It's part of what you all do at Martin. It's part of what VCU brings to the table. It's part of the artists and the food and beverage scene and the music scene. And I think the creativity here in town weaves itself into every single industry, which makes it a really cool, unique, great place to be. Paula.
I'd love to. First of all, born and raised in Jersey City.
Hey.
A great place to move to. But I'll always be a Jersey girl. I'll never be a Richmonder, right? You have to be born and raised to truly be a Richmonder. You'll never take the girl. You can take the girl out of Jersey, but not the Jersey out of the girl. But I would say another piece in terms of attracting economic development is our higher education here in Richmond, and that's the production of talent. I mean, when you think about it, we have right here, within a 10, 15-mile radius, you've got VCU, VUU, BSU, a little bit further down, Petersburg, Reynolds, Brightpoint, Randolph-Macon, University of Richmond. When you think about all of that talent that our region produces at in all areas of the talent spectrum, whether it's your skilled workforce, your welders, your electricians, those core functional, core to our infrastructure types of positions that we're producing those, as well as our doctors, our nurses, our engineers. It is such a rich place for anyone thinking about Richmond. Look at what Richmond, the number, the quality of workforce that our higher education system here in Central Virginia produces. And I would think that's a very attractive piece. I'll speak from the community college space. Localness is our superpower. We do not export talent. The students who study and achieve a credential with us are the students who are the completers who will be powering our local workforce. A big expansion in recent years has been in the pharmaceutical, manufacturing, and biotechnology space. Again, it's our local community colleges who are doubling down in this space. You see it at Brightpoint Community College with pharmaceutical manufacturing, Reynolds Community College in the research and development side in biotechnology and life sciences. So being very responsive to what's happening here in Richmond. I care deeply about Northern Virginia. but the talent that they need is not the talent that I'm concerned with, you know, and so that means working very closely, not just with existing companies who need to scale or need a greater pipeline of a talented workforce, but also responsive to new business and industry needs, whatever they are. So I would say that's a big something very attractive about this area is that we produce such rich talent year over year over year, from career and technical, your welder, your electrician, your HVAC technician to keep your house warm and cool in the summertime, all the way through structural engineers and folks in the medical field. So not too many areas can really brag on how much and how rich the higher ed system is.
Takeen, I'd like to come to you to talk about another uniquely Richmond institution, which is your organization, the Richmond Ed Fund. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that does and how that's helping the workforce pipeline as well?
Sure. We're a much different organization than we were when I joined 2 years ago. But I like to think of us as Richmond Public Schools' venture fund. It's incredibly difficult to try any new things or any innovative things using public dollars or tax dollars. People are like, oh my goodness, you all are being risky. And so my job is to really kind of be that catalyst. And so to kind of piggyback on what my colleagues on the panel have shared, when I first joined, my board chair had made a comment to me. It was like, yeah, I think we can raise all types of national dollars, and that's kind of your charge. And so I started looking at like our old case for supports and like our history, and none of those things really resonated with me. And I was like, if I was a billionaire, I wouldn't invest in Richmond Ed Fund because of it. So through some soul searching and a lot of conversations with some folks on this panel, some people in the audience, what I kind of landed on was Richmond is the perfect place to test new ideas in American public education. Partly because we're large enough that whatever we do, it matters. And people can say, oh, like, they have a decent sample size. But also we're small enough that we can see impact really, really quickly. And so we can help tell the story of something's working, and it can be scaled up in other places across the country. And so in our world, you know, I think in public schools, people are clamoring for something different. People don't exactly know what different looks like at this point. And I see our role as really helping them kind of reimagine what school can be in the 21st century. And so we took that message on the road to a number of potential investors, and fortunately, a number of them have made some really significant investments in our work. And so I think that like Richmond is attractive, you know, our proximity to DC, our proximity to the beach, to the mountains. But I think our size, like we're really a jewel. And I think the other thing that I would say about this is because of our history, people are always really, really excited about what's next for Richmond. And so how do we package this in a way that we can show folks that like Richmond can be the place that does something first, which is the antithesis of who we've been historically.
Yeah. Can you take us behind the scenes of some of those VC conversations? You mentioned, you know, your first thought was billionaires might not want to invest in the Richmond Ed Fund, but clearly you've had some success. So what were some of those early conversations with VCs, and were they initially positive and supportive from the beginning, or were you able to flip the switch? Or, you know, take us behind the scenes of some of those.
Yeah, I mean, I think there have been a couple of things that really have worked for us. One, we have a superintendent who's willing to try some things differently. So, for example, did y'all know that we have a year-round school in Richmond? And so year-round school historically is 180 days. Kids go to school. They go to school year-round, but they have more breaks and shorter breaks. So they don't have the long summer break. You know, every 9 weeks, they're off 2 or 3 weeks. Our model, kids are in school 200 days. And so they go back to school in July, and this is now in 4 of our elementary schools. They go back to school in July, and everything else remains the same. And so we launched it in the summer of 2023 in 2 elementary schools. One of those schools is 96% Latino. 80% of those students, English is their second language. The other school is 97% economically disadvantaged, which means plus or minus 97% of the kids are 200% or more below the federal poverty level. The first school, Cardinal Elementary School, reading scores increased 5 points in 1 year, just going to school 20 additional days. The other school, Fairfield Court Elementary School, reading scores increased 20 points in 1 year. And so I don't think that this is necessarily like something that we don't expect, but if kids are in school, good things are happening. And so we've been telling that story, and part of the way this works, we pay teachers 10% more. They receive in addition to a $10,000 sign-in bonus, and then there's a $5,000 performance bonus. And so we're testing these new ideas. We're telling the story. And so like superintendent and I published an article in an education magazine about, we call it RPS 200. And so I want to continue scaling new ideas. And I think one of the things that we don't do well in Richmond, we don't move fast enough, which I kind of alluded to earlier about you'll talk about something for 10 years and then you'll be talking about something else. And so how do we really begin to expedite ideas into action and then we learn from them? I don't think we necessarily have a culture in Richmond of it's okay not to be successful. And I always say that can be a teachable moment. Even if it blows up in our face or it's terrible, what can we learn from that to be stronger on the next project?
Up next, how these talent strategies are delivering bottom line results that other organizations are scrambling to replicate.
One of the ways, Takeen, that we can probably expedite some of that speed in learning is cross-sector collaboration. So I want to kind of transition the conversation a little bit. We're seeing more and more how companies need to work across sectors to really achieve true innovation. If you look at the program here today, I think we started off talking about medicine early this morning. We were just talking about basketball. Now we're talking about workforce. You know, we're kind of across sectors throughout 3 days here at the Big Dipper. And so I'd like to get y'all's take on what you're seeing in the workforce. Are you looking at other sectors? And maybe Kim, come to you first. Mm-hmm. You know, you're in creativity and advertising and in promotion in that world, but your clients are all over the map. You got to keep your eye on the full spectrum of what's happening out there, macro with macro trends. Yep. So how do you stay current? How do you stay abreast of what's happening out there? Are you looking at other sectors as leaders in innovation?
Yeah, absolutely. So from a talent perspective, as I said, I'm always sensing and sort of working to understand the environment that we're in and the workforce needs that we are challenged with each and every day. And that is, I've worked across 5 different sectors in my career journey. And I can say that we're all sort of facing the same challenges along the way. And so being sort of diligent in talking with our clients and understanding where their challenges are, talking with our talent and understanding what those challenges are, as well as attending some of these external conferences and being able to make these incredible connections. To hear you talk about sort of skill and workforce development, it's amazing. And so be able to make these connections, I think these are all sensing opportunities for us to stay abreast of what those workforce challenges are and how we can absolutely address them. Yep.
Dr. Pando, what about you all at Reynolds? I mean, degree programs have to be more cross-sector than probably ever before.
Absolutely. I would offer that we are a part of virtually every single economic development project before it arrives at Richmond, before we win the economic development project, whether it was becoming a tech hub, one of very few in the United States to have that tech hub designation. Again, our work in the pharmaceutical research and development part, that we're able to to contribute to those. We're part of one now. There's a non-disclosure agreement, so I can't talk, maybe I'm not even allowed to say that I signed a non-disclosure agreement, but we recently signed, and it would be an incredibly big win for our sector, but that's us being at the table, not an afterthought. So that, if we are successful, we can then start building a program well beyond or well before the time that company, that industry hits the borders within our state, that we already have a program developed, agile, the agility to be responsive to not just what is and what needs to scale, but what's coming, and to constantly be aware of what's coming, which also means, and this is the hardest thing, higher ed, we're not known for moving very quickly. We have to become a lot more agile, and that means sunsetting programs that are no longer relevant. We don't have the kind of budgets to boil the ocean and do everything. So that means having those conversations of what goes. If we were still teaching typewriter maintenance, which we did years ago, we wouldn't be enrolling that program and utilizing precious resources for something that is no longer a thing. And so, again, it's keeping our eyes on the horizon, being engaged in economic development conversations on the early end and not when it's been won, when the contract's been won, when it's coming to Virginia. Now can we build something? It's being a part of those conversations very early on and making curricular adjustments accordingly.
I'd like to transition again and T-Bay, come back to one of the conversations we were having earlier about human-centered design and the importance of humanity and what we do. And I want to kind of tee you up to learn about one of your particular KPIs that you have at Dominion up with your team. Can you tell us about love as a KPI?
Yeah, so love as a KPI is certainly a personal philosophy, and I'll describe it in a second, but where I can bring it even informally into our team organization, I do. And love as a KPI asks the question, if we as business people, business leaders, if we measure things that are important, right? We measure turnover and sales and all these metrics, should we not also be measuring how we leave people at the end of the day? Should that not also be a KPI? And so there are many metrics, like, for example, in my world, in customer world, we measure customer satisfaction and NPS and employee satisfaction, and those are great, and those are very important. But those actually are asking you how you feel about us. Those are not asking you how we have impacted you. And so I started sharing about this a few years ago, and I share about it even within Dominion when asked to, invited to. But the premise, though, even if you don't use that word, because I know that word sometimes, people are like, what's the place of love in business? The intention is still very powerful. I believe that every human being is wired to respond to that, is wired to respond to being seen, is wired to respond to being valued. Everyone, no matter how tough you present, when you encounter someone who makes you feel valued, you respond in kind. And what does that response mean in the context of a business? Well, if you're an employee, you will stay longer. You will tell people about that company. If you're a customer, you will also stay longer. You'll probably buy more. You'll probably forgive a grievance, right? I always ask the question, I won't ask it in this room, what company comes to mind when you think of great customer experience? I ask that question hundreds of times. You can imagine, you probably are thinking about the company that comes up the most. Chick-fil-A is one example, right? And so people, for some reason, Chick-fil-A has the people in a chokehold. People love Chick-fil-A, they're very loyal to it. And every time I ask why, just using that one brand as an example, people give me their reasons. Oh, they say my pleasure, or the food's good, or the restaurants are clean, all these different reasons. All those reasons are saying the same thing. They're basically saying they care about me, they value my time, they're considerate of me. And so at the end of the day, the bottom line is everyone wants that. And so if businesses tap into that, you can get your financial, your strategic, and your operational outcomes while not leaving people and their humanity as the collateral damage. How does that play into just business overall? David, who is actually in the front, is one of the people that led, we do journey redesign. So human-centered design is a practice that we're building and we're bringing into Dominion. And I shout out David out because he led one of those projects last year where we're encouraging, because Dominion's already a mission-driven company, right? We've always had customers. We're literally there to serve. Like that's just it's in our mission. What we're trying to grow more of is the awareness of, hey, the thing I do on my part of the company impacts the thing that you do. It's the awareness of the thing that we all do impacts a customer's life and their day. And so we're bringing in human-centered design as a practice to bring in that view of the human, right? Earlier we said technology is great, but technology in service of what, right? Processes are great, but processes in service of what? You need a unifier. And the unifier has to be the customer. If not, it's going to be about my thing and your thing and your thing and your thing, but there's nothing to unify. And so we're bringing in more and more the practice of making the customer the unifier. And as we collaborate across, it's a big company with different departments, different skill sets, some very technical, some not so technical. If you bring all these people together, how do you unify them to solve a problem? Well, you need to bring the human at the center, which is the customer. So we're bringing in even the concept of love as a KPI, even if we're not using that word daily, the intention shows up in how we solve problems and how we do projects, which is why I'm smiling at my friend David over there, because he led one of those.
So we've been talking about talent in relation to love. We've been talking about talent in relation to attraction, but I want to talk about retention as well, because keeping talent here is equally as important, if not more important, than trying to attract a whole influx from out of town. And I'd like to come to Kim, Paula, and Takeen to get your perspectives on your various sectors. But Kim, tell me a little bit about Martin. I mean, you all are a big, prominent organization where folks who come to work for you can really quickly and easily go work for another big company in New York, DC, Miami, wherever, or start their own company. So I imagine the exodus from Martin is pretty sweet once you have that on your resume. So how do you keep people in the door at Martin?
Yeah. So Martin, our mission is we fight invisibility. And I think that the people that we attract to the agency really believe in that mission. And, the mission in its inception was very much client-focused, like 84% of ads go unnoticed, and so we're going to cut through the noise and we're going to get you noticed. We are fighting invisibility. But that quickly translated to the people experience and us fighting invisibility for our people, our communities, and our craft. And so from a retention perspective, it starts from even before someone gets there is being bought into the mission of our organization and what we're going after. The other part of that equation is that individual is coming to us and they're giving us something, their incredible craft, their time away from their family. It's a hustle. And so we are always thinking about what are we giving back? What are we giving back in addition to that paycheck, right? So how are we investing in our talent in a way that is additive to their life? And whether that's through community and culture and creating an environment that is just top-notch, creates a sense of belonging pretty much immediately as soon as you enter the doors, to doubling down on craft and investing in folks while a lot of organizations may be pulling back on learning and development. While a lot of organizations in the industry don't really offer learning and development, we're saying, we're gonna step in front and we're gonna go ahead and invest in this and invest in you so that you can do your best work. So it's the investments that we're making. It's, of course, the mission that folks already sort of bought into. And then it's the opportunity to do really incredible work. The clients that we work with believe in our mission. They believe in fighting invisibility, and they believe in doing really creative, bold work. And so people come to us and they want to work with the clients that we work with. And I'll say, with our leadership team, they'll tell you day in and day out, they say no to some clients just because there may not be alignment in terms of what we're going after and what we're chasing. And so having that line in the sand, having a values-driven organization, a mission-driven organization, it's really easy to retain people when you create an environment where they can truly just show up and do really badass work. Yeah.
Paula, to come to you, what about people who don't have work experience yet? How do you keep them in town? How do you keep your graduates from exodusing to DC or other areas around?
Sure. Well, that's almost a little bit of a softball because, in community colleges nationally, upwards of 80, nearly 90% of the students who enroll, this is home. Their families are here. Their children are going to school here. I wanted to piggyback on a couple of points made on the retention piece. So when I started at Reynolds 7 years ago, the college had been hemorrhaging students, lost 40% of its enrollment in 7 years, 40% of its enrollment, reductions in force year after year after year. And so coming in, it was shifting gears on, it's wonderful that we're enrolling all of these students, but they're leaving. So retention became a very big focus for us. And it's interesting that you have love as a KPI, because for me, I thought of it as loving our students to success. And loving students to success doesn't mean hugs and kisses. It also means course correcting. It means having the hard conversation. If you love your kids, you're going to say no sometimes. If you love your kids, you might say, no, not now, but here's another path for you. So that was a really big focus. And 7 years later, we're outpacing all of the community colleges in the Commonwealth, in our enrollment growth, in our retention growth, in our completion rates. That work has been really important over 7 years. A friend of mine who recently retired after a long and distinguished career, when I started my 7th year, she said, it's time for your second presidency. And I said, well, I don't want to go anywhere. She said, well, you don't have to. You don't have to. But 7 years, what's your next hill to climb? What's the hill to climb year 7? The work that you came to do, you've accomplished. We keep at it. We keep refining. We keep building, scaling that work. It's important work. We're nowhere near where we want to be, but my goodness, we're so much farther ahead than where we were in 2018. And so that next presidency for me is defined by the investment in our people. The hunt for talent is fierce. When I'm 55 years old. I remember, 20, 30 years ago being on search committees and seeing people who'd been at places 1 and 2 years. That was a red flag 20 years ago. This person can't keep a job. They're job hopping all the time. Where's the fire? Why are they not staying? But we're seeing that more and more as the norm now, that people have short tenures at several organizations. And so how do we recruit that talent? Why stay with us? And so the big focus for me has been in talent development within our organization, so that, if you're a counselor or a junior faculty member or a financial aid professional, name it, we're investing in you through our Unlocking Your Potential program to prepare people for the next step in their career, hopefully at Reynolds. And while participating in this does not guarantee you a promotion, man, it makes you really competitive for that next level. And so we're seeing a high level of response from our employees of feeling seen, that we are investing in them in the same ways that we invest in our students, which also means sometimes having the hard conversation. So be candid with your feedback and fierce with your support, equally so. Fiercely supporting, all right, that was a missed opportunity for you, but we're gonna course correct here because I believe in you. You've got such talent. We learn the most not from our greatest successes. We learn typically when we fall on our face, when a misstep of some sort. And so that retention of talent is my next hill to climb as president. We've been at this work for the greater part of a year. And we're seeing some real positive response from our workforce of, they knew the new gal coming in was about putting students at the center of every conversation, like you, the client, right, the customer. Students have got to be the focus of our work, not our preferences. And we've done that work over 7 years, and we've gotten really good at it. We've built muscle around that. Let's shift focus, not away from, but an and. What about the folks that call this their workplace, and how do we create a better environment for them where they feel seen, where they feel respected, and worthy of investment?
From a leadership perspective, Paula, how did you instill that cultural change? I mean, to have that metric change as significantly as it did, I imagine it comes from the top, and you have to instill in the professors and the faculty and anybody else who's supporting to have that same mentality and then to instill it genuinely and authentically in the students. What did you see from a leadership perspective? Was that easy to accomplish? Did you have people who pushed back against that mentality? What was your journey in those 7 years?
It was not easy. And I will share with you that the members of my senior team are not the members of the senior team, with the exception of one or two people. Most had been working at the college for many, many years, and while I was grateful for their service, they were so entrenched in the way things had always been done. And if we were wildly successful with that way, then let's keep going. But it was, in the medical field, they call it circling the drain. I mean, truly, it's like how many more reductions in force before we're now, at the marrow, at the bone marrow. So it was making the case for what might it look like if, or asking hard questions. Why do we do this thing? Well, this is no, I know that this is the way you've done it. What's the why behind we do this thing? And might we consider a different way? Because what we're doing doesn't seem to be working. The students first mentality, I think there was heart for that. But again, when you work in the academy, some folks might say, no, faculty first. It's the faculty first. And I don't think it has to be an either or. But if we're not focused on what I would say, the students we actually have and not the ones you wish you'd had, like when you were in school and you were allowed to be mean to students and say, look to the left, look to the right, one of you won't be here at graduation, and that was a good thing. It's really a shifting of mindset. And I think where we were onto something, never waste a good crisis, was during COVID. A lot of folks thought that the students who stopped out or dropped out were just not serious academically. They had too much going on in their lives. And we realized, and I'll always credit my good friend and colleague, Dr. Makol Abdullah at VSU, when we were talking all virtually during a global pandemic, he reminded us that while we are all in the same storm, we are not all in the same boat. Some of us are in dinghies, and the water is coming in those boats. Some of us are seaworthy vessels. I saved money on dry cleaning. I saved money on gas. I saved money on a lot of things. And so I think that moment became a real eye-opener for our college community in terms of who disappeared, who just didn't return. And the work of trying to get them back opened eyes to the lived experiences of our students. And that eye-opening experience was not something that you could just forget. It was a visceral response to what's happening to our students. And so I think, in the school of never waste a good crisis, that was a moment that helped our college community rally around the students we actually have and not the ones they imagined they'd have when they were in graduate school.
Speaking of same storm, different boat, Takeen, let's talk about your boat, which is a little bit different. And the struggle that you might have in the Richmond public school system with teachers and employees and support staff, keeping those folks here in town, and not just keeping them in town, but keeping them excited and motivated and looking forward to the innovations that you all might be funding through your program.
Yeah, a couple things. One, I'll go kind of back to something that was mentioned earlier about love as a KPI. We always talk about we teach, lead, and serve with love. And much like at the community college, that doesn't begin and end with the students. It also includes the faculty. Richmond Public Schools, I'm proud to say this, Richmond Public Schools actually pays better than any of our neighboring counties now, which I think that's been a step toward retention. And the other thing is, how can we kind of serve as a catalyst to do some things differently? So we've done things like those compensation incentives that I talked about earlier. We've invested in a principal coaching program to really build the next generation of school leaders. And, I think the other thing is, how do we get back to this place of cross-sector collaboration? So teachers are really, really focusing on teaching and learning, and like we can solve all of these other things, right? So we know that what happens in schools, that's a small percentage of what a child is actually experiencing. So if a child is hungry or houseless or the parents are stressed, all of those things impact what happens with their academic achievement. And so we've really tried to control as many of those things as possible by providing those wraparound supports. So like we have a wellness office that everything from nursing all the way to mental health counseling, and then we have partners out. I think that in America, schools have tried to do too much over the past 20 or 30 years, and we try to like solve all the problems because we understand that all of these other variables impact a child's learning. And so I think it's really, really important for us to lean on these other partners and true experts and say, hey, like, can you do this for us, or can we pay you to do this for us instead of us trying to do everything ourselves?
Well, thank you all so far with the questions that we had and the sections that we've gone through. I want to now turn to audience questions. We've got about 20 minutes left, and we have quite a number of questions, and if you all have more, please, by all means, send them in. Use the QR code that you all see around. But there's a handful of questions here about hiring and bringing people on board, and what attributes you all see are the most underrated or overrated in the hiring. And I'll probably look to you, T-Bay, and Kim on the corporate side. T-Bay, we'll start with you. Again, what do you think is the most underrated and maybe overrated attributes in candidates?
Underrated. I don't know if it's underrated, but I think what might be overrated sometimes is some of the literals, like literally 8 years of experience, literally 15 years of experience. I think some of even the actual technical elements, I think, are sometimes overrated. What I found that might be underrated, they're important, but this is about, context. Thinking, how people think. How people respond to even a challenge on their way to the interview or a challenge during the interview, how they respond to a question they didn't expect, how they respond to the thinking, how someone thinks, how someone goes from A to B to C to D. Do they stop in the middle because they haven't been there before? Do they think through a path that hasn't been solved? I even within the team, with conversations recently we've been having on hiring, I'm like, let's solve for their thinking. Someone who can think critically, someone who can think big picture, someone who can think about not just about themselves, but like the impact of their role to others. I think you can put them in many settings and many places and they'll be successful. That's the commonality with people that I've worked with over the course of my career at Dominion, outside of Dominion. It's less their degree or the technical thing, it's sort of their thinking. Their thinking also dictates how they say, what they present, how they respond to feedback, right? Feedback is not an attack at them, it's data, it's information. And so I'd say it's thinking, and I think being able to think critically, strategically, think about others, right? Kindness plays into that. Those are the things that are not always easy to quote unquote test for, but if you're observing to look for them, you can glean. I would say those are what I would say might be underrated, because I think your thinking is the determinant of your pattern, and I'm always looking at patterns.
So how do you test for that?
Yeah. So the questions that I threw out. So it's timely. I had some interviews last week. The questions that I threw out are aimed at gleaning that. I don't know that there's like a pure test for it, but a lot of the why questions help you see the logic someone took to get to a decision and how they arrived at something. And so you can't necessarily test for it, but I think you can pick it up in how they respond. I haven't done this. I have a colleague at my former company who would invite someone to an interview on purpose show up late and see how they respond. I'm not advocating for that. I'm seeing our head of talent. No, that's not what we should do. But I think either observing how they interact in an imperfect setting in an interview, or asking them questions that force them to defend the thinking process. Where would you start? Would you start, again, for example, if I wanted to glean how human-centered or how considerate someone is, I ask you a problem, is the starting point you or is the starting point someone else? That's telling for me. And I can ask you the same question differently. Are you thinking about the impact on others? How you can bring people along? Our natural response to things is what I think sometimes can determine. So in an interview setting, you can pick some of these things up, obviously not as readily as you can if working with someone over a long period of time.
Kim, what about you?
Yeah,
Underrated and overrated.
Overrated, that's so tough. I would say, someone comes in and they're overly confident. I think this term of being confident can be interpreted in so many different ways. And so there's quiet confidence, there's the loudest person in the room, there's right. So that I feel like there's something there that can be a little bit overrated. Underrated for me would be learning agility. So someone's ability to learn something quickly and apply it in different contexts. That is something that is, I would say, should be coveted in our current environment. And then resourcefulness. So being able to solve for problems you're faced with and go through the messy middle and come out the other side with a solution. I think this idea of resourcefulness is something that is totally underrated. And the way that we go about assessing for these things are through case studies, through that interview process of digging a little bit deeper. So going beyond the question to say, here's a case study, I need for you to work through this and share with me how you got from point A to point B to really get to their thinking and their ability to think differently and reframe challenges and problems. So I would say that would be my overrated, underrated.
Yeah, I think that agility word is such a unique differentiator in candidates, because if it was the same problem and same solution every day that you're going through, that's an assembly line. And the value isn't the same as if you're adjusting and changing and solving new, unique problems every day that you didn't see coming, perhaps. So, Takeen and Paula, I have an interesting one for you all about social media and its effect on the workforce. What new careers emerging in the world of social media do you see because of that, do you see influencer-focused curricula being introduced in schools or university? Are we going to start teaching how to do social media and being a content creator? Is that a legitimate workforce element as we move forward? It's a great question.
I have a vested interest in this response. Let's hear it.
Yeah.
I'm the mother to 6 kids. If any one of them said, I'm studying to be an influencer, I don't know, there's not enough wine in the world. I want to study to be an influencer. That's what I want to be when I grow up. I think we have a responsibility to teach how to use social media. And perhaps there's a credential out there in the future that I'm not yet seeing, but how to utilize social media and the responsibility when representing an organization. In this time that we're in right now, I can certainly, I can speak for myself, but I know I'm speaking for others. Regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum of an incredibly divided country, there are people who you lead who are wondering where your statement is. Why aren't you making a statement about whatever it is? And understanding that while Paula Pando, the private citizen, there's a lot of alliteration there, Paula P. Pando, the private citizen, expresses her beliefs with passion inside my home and in the voting booth, as a college leader, where what I say represents the college could have consequences that are beyond what used to be a fine. And so I think, again, understanding, and with our staff, with our students, understanding social media has a reach far beyond the one that perhaps you intend, that it can be shared, screenshotted, and live forever. And so I think teaching social media responsibly as part of the curriculum. We talk a lot about, our folks in the humanities are afraid, right? They feel like, are we going away? It's all about workforce and skills, skills, skills. What about the humanities? Well, the human aspect. How do we represent ourselves? How do we utilize social media and other platforms responsibly? And again, depending on what your role is, if you represent an organization, how do you lead with moral clarity, using social media as a platform for good, while utilizing the political acumen that's always been necessary, but hyper necessary in the times we're living in?
Keen, how about you? And you're thinking about innovation in the classroom, innovation in education.
Yeah, I mean, I think I disagree a little bit with Paula on this one. I don't know if we'll necessarily call it influencer marketing, but it's part of marketing at this point. And so I don't think that like a brand really has a presence without a social media presence. And so if we aren't teaching students how to really leverage that, we aren't really making them competitive for the workforce of the future. And so I think another example of that is probably video games. 20 years ago, I had teachers saying things like, what are you gonna do, play video games for the rest of your life? And now people are earning a healthy living off of esports. You can go to college and have a full scholarship based on esports. Even Randolph-Macon, I think they're the closest institution of higher learning with esports. And so I think this is probably another example of how we have to push the academy to really embrace modern needs and modern desires.
To flip the script a little bit, coming back to T-Bay and Kim, there's a question here about motivating the senior members of your staff. Those who are maybe closer to the end, the beginning of their careers, they probably have the greatest institutional knowledge and value that they provide that way, but maybe not the most contemporary skill set. They probably don't have the social media cachet that some of the younger folks do. How do you keep those people motivated and inspired and keep them innovating as well?
Yeah, I can take a stab at that. So I think a great case study for us is with our newest program, CAKE, where we are tapping in-house experts who have been in the biz for a very long time to share their craft. And I'm essentially working through like a train the trainer mode. I'm teaching them how to instructional design so that they can unpack their expertise and share it with the next gen. In the same setting, that next gen, that content creator, is also sharing their wisdom with that more tenured team member. And so we're creating an environment and a community of shared wisdom and sort of this collective learning. And so I think that there is an opportunity here for us to really tap into more tenured talent. I do think that they do want to share their wisdom with the next gen. I just think it's really providing that environment and that framework for them to be able to do it. What I hear a lot from our experts is that, you know, all of this is muscle memory. It's second nature. Like, I don't know how to teach this to someone. And so that's where I can come into play, or a partnership can come into play to help them understand how they can unpack their wisdom and their knowledge to share it with the next gen, and then vice versa. But we're creating a community in CAKE that does just that, because we do have some incredible tenure in the organization, and they have a wealth of knowledge that they can share with the next gen, and vice versa.
Okay. I think the environment at Dominion lends itself to this. So when I shared that there are a lot of opportunities within the company to move around. And so part of that is folks who have been in the company 20, 30, 40 years. Some may choose to stay in the same role. A lot choose to still move around. And so with that as an option, folks don't feel necessarily like, I've been here doing the same thing, you know, forever. A lot of people are still, they may be 35 years in the company, but they're new at the thing that they're doing, which is a good way, again, a reframe of this idea that there's, you know, a subset of our colleagues who, you know, need to continue to be engaged. Well, through their roles and through their rotations, that engagement comes. I think the second way to think about this, at least from my perspective, is the appropriate honor. I've actually had someone reach out to me maybe last year asking this question, like, hey, I've been at the company this long, I'm not sure what opportunities are there for me. My response to this colleague was, you need to see the value in the experience you have. And I think there's a role that leaders must play in giving colleagues who have been at companies for a long time the due honor. And honor is, I think, the word I'm thinking of, that helps them see their role as imparting what they know to the next generation, where applicable. So one, I think the ecosystem within Dominion makes it easy for people to always feel new at something. I think we all need that every once in a while. I think two is positioning people and enabling them and empowering them with what you know is invaluable. And will you be part of how we impart and how we move these things forward? And I think the third is there's and I think I bring it back to leadership. I think leadership plays a key role, but there's an aspect of, whether it's in the contact centers, for example, we pair tenured colleagues with folks who are new, right? There's an aspect of duos, and how we organize teams to solve problems is also one way to engage colleagues with a range of work experiences. There's a lot of meetings at Dominion will start with people introducing themselves and how long they've been at the company. And when folks have been at the company for a long time, sometimes you hear people clap and applause. It's a good thing. It's a great thing actually for our culture. It's a great thing for people coming to new, that it's valued, it's honored, it's revered. So we signal that as well to people across all years of experience. I've only been there 5 years. I keep saying that because I want a certificate. You don't get one until you hit 5. Right? I am almost there, almost there. Everyone will hear about it when I get that one certificate. You all will hear about it. But it's how a company signals what it means to have 20, 30 years of experience is important, because if it signals, yeah, your yesterday's, then that's where it starts to feel like there's lack of engagement. And so I think the culture helps with that. The fact that folks move around a lot helps with that. And of course, there's a management role in making sure that people who have been in these roles, even with new people coming in, feel honored, feel respected, and valued.
Thanks, Tide. All right, we're running out of time here. We're kind of getting to the end. I'm going to ask one last kind of lightning question for everyone. We'll start with you, Paula, at the end. So we talked a lot about Richmond today, and that's what we're here to kind of highlight and celebrate. We talked about it being kind of an underrated gem, kind of something that's under the radar, and that we really need to get the word out more. What needs to happen to change that? What do we need to do here in Richmond to elevate our profile and really put Richmond on the map for innovation?
I would say today's pace of change is the slowest we will ever experience moving forward. And I think that we need to move more quickly than perhaps we have. It's paralysis by analysis. Tykeem, you were talking about, like, how many times can we talk about something and 10 years have passed and we haven't moved? So I think we've talked a lot about agility, that we need to practice that agility perhaps more than we have. And maybe it's because I'm from the Northeast and we talk faster and we do things more quickly. But I think that from proof of concept to action, there's got to be less time in between.
Yep. Speed of execution. T-Bay, what about you?
If I'm answering that question purely as a brand question, how do you drive the brand? I would answer like I would answer any brand question. Pick your spots. I think the city needs to decide the 2, 3, 4 things it wants to be known for, and everyone focus on that, double down, and amplify that message. It can't be 7,000 things at the same time. You pick your spots. Everyone focuses on it. You tell a brand story. You name it. You brand it. You attract people to it, and you start to build from there. That's how even Singapore, cities that have transformed, have done it that way.
Yeah, what are the pillars, and let's rally around those.
That's right.
Yeah, so I'll double click on that. I think a branding effort is definitely worthwhile here, and being able to tell our story, know your audience, understand what pillars make our city what it is, and then tell that story over and over again. I think that's something that's needed.
Yep. Repetitiveness.
Yeah.
That message going.
Yeah.
Hakeem?
Good thing we have more need here, right?
Yeah. And you can help buy some media for us.
So I would say this if I wasn't in my current role, but Richmond Public Schools is the catalyst for Richmond taking the next step. And so I think we're gonna have to make some smart and intentional investments, and I think that can be the catalyst for us becoming the city that we all want us to be.
Well, thank you all. Thank you all for coming to our session today. Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Utibe. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Taki. I appreciate everything, and we'll let the stage go and give somebody else the chance to speak. So thank you all so much.
The future of winning isn't about technology. It's about people who can adapt faster than disruption itself. What these workforce leaders showed us today is already influencing how organizations nationwide approach talent, not as an expense to manage, but as a competitive edge that determines who survives and who thrives. If you're building teams, developing learning systems, or just trying to figure out what's next, the message is crystal clear. The organizations that invest in talent development win. Everyone else gets left behind. Be sure to check out our other episodes from the Big Dipper Innovation Summit for more insights from leaders shaping the future.